Hello, listeners, and we are back for another episode of the Naked Coach Collective. And this is a guest episode, and I have the exciting task today of being the interviewer to a guest that I met. Now, I'm trying to think how long ago now, probably maybe a year, or
Yes,
maybe just
lovely.
beginning. I can't remember now. But we met at a course, as coaches go on lots of courses, or do lots of courses, and I don't know what the word is, naturally gravitated, started talking, and I would say the rest is history. And we've been contact. We're in contact. It's interesting because us coaches do need contact with other coaches, and we always need someone else, not just someone else, but lots of other support. And the great thing I think about coaching support is that you don't need to be in each other's pockets all the time. You think about each other, you shoot each other a little message, how you doing, what's going on, and all that kind of stuff. And then when either of us have needed support, we've both been there for each other. And that's how coaching works. It's not those kind of friendships that are what I would call all consuming, where you know the other person thinks if you haven't messaged them or you haven't spoken to them that they've done something wrong. Coaching's not like that, and that's the beauty of it. And so without further ado, I'm going to introduce my friend and fellow coach, Cheri. How are you, Cheri?
Hi, Melissa. I'm great, thank you. It's lovely to be here.
You are leaps and bounds now, going leaps and bounds. I know you had a little bit of a sort of lull, I think, where you were working out all your coaching and how it was going
Yeah,
to go and where it was going to go and what you were going to do. But you are known as ATUM Coaching, am I correct?
that is correct. Yeah, and stands for Action Through Understanding Mindset. Because if you think, unless you understand like your thoughts and emotions behind like what's stopping you doing something or what's making you do something, how can you then start to change those behaviours and those thought processes?
Absolutely. So thank you for clarifying that. And I am not going to introduce what you do. I'm going to let you introduce what you do, who you are, and maybe start like with a little bit of background as to how you got into coaching.
Yeah, of course. So I'm in my late 40s now. I've got two adult children, and I actually do have a corporate job as well as my own coaching business. And I guess for me, throughout my career, I've really struggled to have people that have kind of advocated for me. I've grown up with a lot of childhood trauma,
Mhm.
so I think around probably my 20s, I started that journey of self discovery. It usually started in the same way that I think it probably does for many people.
Okay.
Something happens, you're quite defensive, and then people start to point out things like,
Hmm.
oh, you're really defensive. I'm just asking this question. And it took a
Yes.
little while for me to kind of really think about, well, why am I doing that and
Mm.
not be defensive? Which I think started me on that journey of, oh, this is interesting. This is a bit new here. I'm not sure how I feel about this.
Hmm.
But carried on learning a little bit more about myself. And then through my career, I went on different courses, grew a team. And then through my 30s, I actually managed quite, reasonable sized teams of like 10 commercial managers, because that's my background. I've got a law degree, qualified mediator as well as being a
Wow.
qualified coach. And so my teams have always kind of resonated with me because I've asked like open questions and like, what do you mean by that? And
Hmm.
like, what do you think you want to do, rather than like telling them what to do. So we've sort of gone through that journey of growth together, I guess.
Yes.
Um, I never really had like anybody, as I was saying, to like advocate for me. So I kind of learned that myself. Um, but what I did have was opportunities to learn.
Mhm.
So I was very clear about where I wanted to go in my career path. I always wanted to go down the legal route, not I didn't want to be a solicitor, but I like the commercial, the risk and opportunity side of thing, which is the natural curiosity, which then feeds into the coaching. Um, and I was very fortunate to be able to go on courses, and then you end up being around other people that are naturally quite curious. So
Mhm.
that's where you do the inner work at that sort of
Yes.
surface level to start off with, I think. Um, and then as my career progressed through my 30s and into my 40s, I I guess I started doing more real self-development courses, like leadership type
Yes. Yeah.
activities, managing bigger teams. I'd swapped jobs, or should I say I changed jobs
Yes. Yes.
um a couple of times, because I tend to stay in my career quite a long time, so lots of
Mhm.
8 years, 7 years.
Yes.
And now in the healthcare environment that I'm currently working, as well as my coaching business, I do a lot of mentoring of like other people in the workplace,
Mhm.
not just my own team, but the outside sort of
Yep.
departments, if you like. Um, yeah, and that's kind of where I've naturally sort of gravitated. And then last year, I think it was June last year, I formally started my company,
Mhm.
and it slowly snowballed from there, really.
Wow. And so tell us a little bit about your company, what you actually coach in and what that actually means for anybody out
Yeah,
there, either, coach or wanting to be coach. Other coaches
yeah.
want to be coach, or people just wanting to be coached.
I think you make a really good point there, actually. Coaches do need coaches. I have a coach. I have a supervisor, actually, as well,
Yes.
um, who keeps me ethical, keeps me grounded, makes sure I'm always coming up to my client sessions and
Yes.
giving them undue positive regard. So
Yes.
my business is actually confidence and resilience coaching
Mhm.
for women in midlife.
Mhm.
So, typical things that I find people come to me with, they may have older children, and they've always been the nurturer, the carer. The children have started to be much more independent, and they're like, oh, I don't know who I am anymore, and I don't know where I'm going, and
Mhm.
like I may or may not have a job, but I don't know
Mhm.
if that's where I want to be now. So they
Mhm.
kind of feel a bit lost, and then they lack the confidence to really dig deep into what it is they really want.
Yeah.
Um, then I've got a couple of clients at the moment that are transitioning career. They've been in there, both of them actually, two completely different jobs, one
Mhm.
in defence and one in customer service type environment. And they both want to transition into something completely different, but
Yes.
they've really struggled having the conversation with their line
Mhm.
manager and with the businesses that are in,
Mhm.
for fear of being judged, fear of not then being what's the word? You know, where you want to you still want to stay, but you want to do a nice transition into where you want to go. So
Yes.
not
Yes.
necessarily leave that industry, but you don't want to do the job that you want to do, for
So,
example.
yeah.
So
Yeah.
they've really struggled to find the way to have those conversations in a
Yes.
way that the recipient is hearing
Mhm.
it in the right way, if that makes sense. So
Mm.
we've done quite a lot of role play actually with those two,
Mhm.
where I've been the easygoing manager, and then I've been maybe a little bit difficult manager, because
Cool.
some people don't receive news very well, do they? And
No.
they think,
No.
oh God, that person wants to leave. Well, there's no point making any effort with them anymore. And
Mhm.
one of them in particular is very much concerned with that.
Mm.
Um, so I kind of work with people, primarily women, um, as I say, that will focus on, they've got a problem or a challenging situation, or they want to change something, but they're stuck in understanding what they need to do because the lack of confidence comes out.
Mhm.
And then what inevitably happens is something will go wrong, because
Yes.
life likes to throw us a few curveballs, as you and I
It
know.
does. Yes.
And then they think, oh, it's all doom and gloom, and I can't, I'm never going to. And it's that
Mhm.
negative self-talk that actually holds them in that state that they are in. So we
Mhm.
do a lot of work around the emotions around those,
Yes.
and where they want to be rather than where they are
Mm.
at that moment in time.
Looking forward rather than the current situation.
Absolutely,
Yeah.
yeah,
Yeah.
yeah,
And I think also probably a little. I mean, I don't coach in exactly the same thing, but I do primarily coach females, as you know. And I think what you also tend to find is they come to you with one thing that is like the
yeah,
major overriding issue. But when you start unpacking it,
Yeah.
There's other stuff below the surface that's actually affecting that one major issue. And so you have to do a little bit work down under first, as I call it, to come
Yeah.
up.
Yeah.
And I think that's the problem is with every coaching client, male or female, there's the overriding thing that you come for that you think is the biggest issue.
Yeah.
Generally isn't. There's generally something else or a bigger issue underneath that's actually brought that one to the surface. And as coaches, we ask the right questions to get them to look under the surface, which is
Absolutely.
something we don't
Yeah.
do, we don't do in normal everyday life.
Yeah.
Hence why coaches need coaches, because we're not always so good about looking deeper into ourselves either, are we?
No, and I think you make a really good point there, that this is why it's really good to have somebody that will actually hold that mirror up to you and
Mm.
say, "Oh, you just said that. What did you mean by that?" So there's no judgment. There's just a natural curiosity. You and I have done it. You
Yes,
know,
we have.
we've talked through some things where we've just been having a general conversation, and then we've each sort of said, "Oh, tell me a little bit more about that."
Mm,
And
mm.
then it kind of stops you in your tracks a little bit, doesn't it? You think, "Oh, I was just saying it. Well, what was I just saying? Why did I say that? What's really going on in that subconsciousness
Yeah,
that
yeah.
actually needs to come to the
Mhm.
surface for me to be able to work through that?"
Mm. And I understand I understand the transition of job thing because, as you know, I'm about to start something new,
Yeah.
and I'm not late 40s, I'm early 50s. And with that comes I had to be very careful when I was applying for new roles. So this is not for coaching. This is my day job, although it's going to very much tap into my skills, which is fabulous. But it was very much initially I had that really worried mindset around, but all people are going to see is a 52-year-old woman applying for jobs.
Yeah.
And initially when I wasn't getting the interviews, I was like, why am I not getting the interviews? What's going on? And I had to have a real good talking with myself. And actually my husband, who is no coach and hates it when I try and coach him.
Don't they
um,
all?
yeah. So I get some points in, and I then goes, "Don't you stop!" And, it's quite funny. Actually, was the one who said to me, "Right, so just take a step back. You're applying for jobs just because you want to move, but you're not really thinking about what you want.
What you want
You're
to
not
do?
really thinking about." He said, and actually, you're applying for jobs that are beneath you. He said, and I don't mean that in nasty, but some people are going to look at you and go, why would she stay with us for that job? That isn't going to fulfill her because of all the things you've done.
Yeah.
And I think it's quite a good point to realise that the age is actually, if you choose to make your age irrelevant,
Yeah.
you can do anything at any age. Just choose to make your age not part of you.
Your age doesn't define you.
Exactly. It's you decide what defines
Yeah.
you.
Mm.
And don't let it be your age because it will stop you doing so many things. And actually, I had a message from a lady that when I go on holiday, she has a bar and we always go and see her. And I absolutely love her. And she's the most straight talking lady you could ever want. And she actually sent me a thing yesterday. She said, it takes courage to move jobs. And as you get older, a lot of people just stay because they think they can't.
Yeah.
And I thought, how lovely is that? And she was so right. So I totally understand the clients that you're working with. And that is, it's brilliant because we do, as women, have a habit of tending to just settle for things.
Yeah, I agree. And I think there's something inherently human about us all that
Mm,
wants to keep ourselves safe.
yes.
So in our subconscious mind, we
Hmm.
look to not challenge the norm, not sit in that uncomfortable
Yeah.
space, because physiology, I can't say the words,
I
B.
know.
The bit that the body does without, right? And this is my perimenopausal brain, right? It just sometimes I can't say words that I want to say. But yeah, the bit that the body does, without you even consciously thinking, is like, oh my God, if I do that, I'm going to get hurt. And it goes back to our roots, i.e., if I put myself out there, I might get killed. I might, a
Yeah,
lion might eat me. Actually, we don't live in that world now. We live in much more of a psychological world.
absolutely.
And therefore, our mind then plays tricks on us
Mm-hmm.
to try and keep us safe from that side of things rather than the physical side of things. And
Yes.
so we go, oh, I can't do that because I might get rejected. And that means people don't like me, or I'm not good enough to do that because I'm too old. And these are just all barriers that we all put in front of ourselves to try and keep ourselves safe. But essentially
Absolutely.
what we're not doing is not keeping ourselves safe.
No.
We're just keeping ourselves in the same state and nurturing the wrong behaviors to help ourselves grow and actually be truly happy. Because if we can't be truly happy doing what we want, how can we be safe?
Mm.
Psychologically, we're not going to be safe because we're
No.
never going to feel enough. And
No.
then that shows up in relationships. That shows up in whatever you are doing right now, whether it's in a job or a
Mm-hmm.
business. And so I think we owe it to ourselves to just be a little bit brave and
Mm.
try something. There's a really nice quote that I see quite a lot out on social media, and it says something like, take the smallest step can make the biggest change, or something like that.
Mm.
And it's like, tiptoe if you must, but take that step. And I just
Absolutely.
think it doesn't matter how tiny that action, but every action will lead to something
Mm-hmm.
else,
Mm-hmm.
and gives you the information then that you get to then decide what's next.
Mm. Absolutely. Absolutely. So those are the kinds of clients you work with.
Yeah,
I suppose maybe what I would ask is the benefits of confidence and resilience
yeah,
to a midlife lady, um, maybe around what she's got. So I know you said some people have children, some people don't.
yeah,
Some people are looking at their careers, some people are looking at it from a point of view of trying to get through menopause, because some people fly through it and some people don't. So the benefits, just name some of the benefits of confidence and resilience that your clients have left you with
yeah.
once they finish with you.
I guess the thing that I've experienced as a coach, coaching others, is that they understand themselves better. So when
Hmm.
they're able to then have conversations, knowing that it doesn't matter what happens in that conversation, they've got the inner strength to then do something about that, whether that's come back and say, well, actually, I disagree because you've misinterpreted my intent
Hmm.
here. So they
Hmm.
get a bit braver, or
Yeah.
they can step back and go, okay, that person's never going to understand, and I can't make that person understand because they're not ready to hear that. But what
Hmm.
I do have now is knowledge, and
Hmm.
I do have a decision that I want to make. So
Hmm.
then that gives them information that they can go and make their own, sort of make their own path rather than just following somebody's path that they've been told to do. So
Yeah.
it gives them much more autonomy and control over their own life.
Hmm.
And from the resilience side of things, I think once people have the confidence to have those conversations, to actually try something new, by practicing that, they develop the resilience when things don't go quite to plan.
Hmm.
Um, and it doesn't become all about how they failed. It becomes
Yes.
about, oh, what is this opportunity teaching me?
Hmm.
What information have I managed to gain from this? Okay, it didn't quite go how I want it to do. Or do you know what? It was an absolute disaster, but that's okay because
Hmm.
I've learned something from here.
Out of everything that we do, good,
Mm,
indifferent, not so good, there's always something, a lesson that can be learned, isn't there? There's always
absolutely. Yeah.
something we can take away with us. And
Yeah.
I think what I was going to say about the coaching, so coming into the coaching world, your life has been a lot around helping, mentoring people, and that,
Yeah.
in your corporate world. So coming into the coaching side of things and working in with the people you work, why do you do it and what do you get out of it?
So I pondered this for a long time. why do I do it? And that's a really good question. It satisfies my inner need to be needed. If you really
Ah,
get into that core of
yeah.
why do I do it? So I love to see people grow and I love to see people develop, right? What it gives me is that sense of being needed.
Mhm. Mhm.
I mean, the whole cliche, Nanny McPhee, when you want me but you don't need me, I'll no longer be here,
Yes,
kind of,
yes, yeah,
you
yeah,
know. And when you don't want me but you need me, that's when I'm around.
yeah.
Um, but yeah, I like, for me, it's very much that when I see somebody go from being really struggling to have a conversation about something that I would probably feel quite confident doing now,
Mhm.
but
Mhm.
remembering how I was
Mhm.
back in my early 20s, how defensive I
Yes.
got at the least little objection or what I perceived was a criticism against me. It wasn't,
Mhm.
it was a criticism against a situation or a behavior.
Yeah.
Um, yeah, I see that person change and develop and become more confident in themselves and therefore showing up authentically as their own true self rather than what society or somebody else has carved them out to be.
Mhm.
Um, and I think, yeah, I am needed and I
Yeah.
am doing something that's worthwhile. So it gives
Mm.
me that sense of personal value, if you like.
Yeah, of course, absolutely. And I think it's interesting because I've sort of analysed that whilst I work with probably women similar age to you, I also have worked with youngsters, and I mean youngsters as in the sense of
Mm,
20s, mid 20s, okay? And it's interesting because I would have said that we were born in an era where we were reasonably free, but we
yeah,
still had constraints. We
yeah,
still had that ideal woman thing that get
yeah,
married, you have a bit of a
absolutely.
career, but you get married, you have children,
Yeah,
still that ideal woman. And the careers were quite limited, option wise, or you felt they were. They weren't, but that's what you were made to feel.
yeah,
And I always think now, have they gone the opposite where they've just got so much choice and so many options,
mm,
and they actually don't. I actually speak to mid 20s and above, and they're like, but I don't know what to do because I've got this and I could do that and I could do this, and we didn't have as many options. Am I coming across right? You understand what
yeah,
I'm
yeah.
saying?
No, I totally get what you're saying is, and I'll let me rephrase that back to you, and just to confirm that what you're asking is, what do I think about the choice that people have now compared to
Yes.
you and I when we were younger, and
Yes,
do
and
I
the
think that
challenges of the
do they
different.
yeah,
Yeah.
do I think they have too much choice, I guess.
Mm.
It's a difficult one, isn't it? Because
Mm.
if I was in my 20s now, would I be thinking, well, I've got too much choice and I don't know, so it gives me uncertainty?
Mhm.
Or would I be much more free child to go and explore, and would
Yeah.
that give me the sense of feeling brave enough to have a go?
Mhm.
Because it doesn't matter if I fail.
Mhm.
Um, I guess looking at my own children, because I've got a boy of 19 and a girl of 21,
Mhm.
so quite
Yeah.
young.
Age, yeah.
Um, I look at both of them, and he's doing a typical male dominated, he's a brickie.
Mhm.
He's qualified as a bricklayer now. And then my
Mhm.
daughter's working in supply chain, but she works
Mhm.
for a farming
Mhm.
community, but in the offices. So I would, it's probably a little bit judgmental, but typically what most girls would of
Yes.
our era go into
To go to.
administrative jobs,
Mhm.
secretarial,
Yeah.
sales type,
Yeah.
office sales kind of customer
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
service type role. Um, However, she is absolutely smashing her job. She
Mhm.
is dealing with quite difficult people. She can hold her own.
Mhm.
She's very confident, but quietly confident.
Mm. Mm.
Whereas I've found it's probably a little bit the other way with my son.
Mhm.
Like, he's very emotionally mature, but because he's around men a lot and not as
Mhm.
many women, I wonder if that has an impact because he's on a site all the time.
Of course, yeah.
Whereas when we grew up, yeah, I I mean, I wanted to work in legal services. That's what I wanted to do. And then, but was I encouraged to do that? Not really. It was just get a job, and because at some point you're going to buy a house with your husband, and I didn't even have a boyfriend at that time, you know.
No, I know,
But
but
I think there is that assumed
yeah.
role that you will undertake, wasn't it? So
It
yeah.
was, and I was in the same position. I told my parents I wanted to go to drama college, and that was just not even an option. That
Mm,
wasn't even on the cards. That wasn't people like me who didn't come from rich backgrounds didn't do those things, and so like you, I just got a job. But
mm,
and
yeah.
that's what it was like. And I think also when I was thinking back about female pressures, and I think there is this pressure on us now, our era now,
Mm,
that that there's a lot that comes out there that tells us that there's those conflicting messages. You shouldn't be old, you shouldn't look old, you need to do this, you need to
yeah.
plump this, you need to add that. Or there's the other one that says just be yourself, just be who you are, be authentic. And I think
Mm,
women are in these like two throws. And again, we come back to that age thing. But when we were younger, we didn't have the pressures so much that the youngsters have now, because
yeah.
the 80s was such a mixed era of different, like you could be a punk, a new romantic. I mean, there was
Yeah.
just so many options, wasn't there? And nobody cared what you were. They just knew you belonged to either that or that, where you were
What
gospel,
you
where you,
wore, where
yeah,
you went.
exactly,
Yeah.
it didn't matter. Whereas now, the pressures, because of social media and because of maybe some leading figures, I'm not going to, I think there is a lot more pressure for
Mm,
females to look and be a certain way, as
yeah.
opposed to us who were able to have our individualities to a degree. Um,
Absolutely. Yeah.
but now
And
we're feeling that pressure that the youngsters have got around our age and, conforming.
yeah, I think so. And I think it's almost like we still have pressure, but
Hmm.
it's moved in a different direction. Will it
Yes.
come full circle again? Who knows?
Yes.
Maybe it will, maybe it won't. So whereas as a child we could go out and play outside and it was come home when it was
Mm,
dark. We had other
yes.
pressures,
Yes.
finish everything on your plate. You mustn't you
Yes.
can't get down on the table,
And there was
that.
no "what do you want for dinner?" It was just put in
Yeah,
front
it
of
was
you,
you've got
wasn't
what you've got, exactly, and like you say, you will get a job, and then you will get married, and then you will have children, and it was the 2.4 children expected,
it?
and you will have a little house in the suburbs or wherever you were
Mhm,
told, and that
mhm,
was it. Whereas now, certainly from my experiences with my friends
mhm,
and people I talk to, their children still live at home, they travel,
mm,
they have all of that freedom. They have
mm,
phones and they can like go and research
mm,
and do whatever. Yet they're still constrained by social media expectations of, like you say,
mm,
look a certain way or
mm.
behave a certain way, or particularly for a female, you
Don't disagree with the norm, it's yeah.
yeah. What you've got to work, and you've got to have a relationship, and
Mm,
you've got to have a house, and you've got to, oh, and by the way, you must invest and you must
yeah.
do this,
It's the
so
superwoman era, isn't it, all over
yeah,
again? We had it to a
yeah,
degree, but it's even more now. Oh,
yeah.
it's a minefield, and
Interesting.
yeah, it is. It's interesting, I think, now that we are, um, you and I and lots of other people are coaching women at that sort of midlife age who, like you said, that's the changing point, and it's not because you're menopausal necessarily. It's
No.
really just because life is shifting,
Mm,
from your sort of 20s and 30s. Your 40s and 50s is where the shifts to really start to happen, the changes really start to happen, and they can really disjoint you and disconnect you,
yeah.
from either yourself or your or the outside world. And I think what you would say is, both of us as coaches try and facilitate, is getting you back to you, getting you back into to realizing what it is that you love that maybe you put on hold for a little while, or what it is you want to do now for the next part,
Yeah.
the next chapters of your life. And it's really so important, like you said, because if you don't live enjoying life, as I know personally,
Mm,
there's no given that you're going to live until you're 70, 80 years old. I'm really sorry
no.
to say that, but there isn't. My sister died at 54, and
Mm,
I I think about that every day. I don't think about the fact that she's passed. I mean, obviously, I miss her terribly, but I think about the fact that I want to make every year count that I live.
Absolutely, yeah.
You know, because if it is going to be my last, then at least I've pushed myself. I've taken the steps. I've been courageous, and I've helped others. And like you say, that is a personal satisfaction, really. That is a need that as females have. We do like to help others. We are nurturers by nature, I think. So,
Yeah, I do agree. And I think around this sort of time, there
mhm.
are so many changes going on for women. And like you say, not just from a hormonal perspective, but
Mm,
very often, if they've got children, they're at that age where they're so much more self-sufficient. So you get
mm,
things like what's labeled as empty nest syndrome, but it doesn't
yeah,
even have to manifest in that way. It can just be I've had this role for so long and now this
mm,
role is not needed in the same way that it was when they were 5, 6,
yeah,
7,
yeah.
or maybe you've got siblings that have other things going on that's then
Mm,
started to make you think, well, hang on a second, I would have liked to have done that. How do they get to do that? Or what? Like, you may be getting to the point where you've got a mortgage and it's coming up for, towards
mm,
coming to the later part of that, sort of
mm.
late 40s. Um, you might not even have bought a house. Like, you might think,
Yeah,
oh my
there's
God,
so
I'm
many.
renting for so
Or
many
you might have
variables. Yeah,
is
whether it's career, financial, relationship,
yeah.
I just think us at this age, there's so many things going on
Mm,
that we owe it to ourselves to sit back and think, well, hang on a second, I'm on this roller coaster of just like
mm,
charging through life, getting stuff done. Is
yeah.
this where I want to
Mm,
be in a
yeah.
year, in 5 years, however, when I
Mm,
retire, will I look back and go, why did I do that job? Like,
Or will
why
I
did
look
I
back and
carry?
go, yes,
Yeah,
I've done it. Yeah.
or will I sit back and think, yes, I
Hmm.
lived that part of my life to the fullest it could be. I'm not
Yeah.
saying it was easy,
No,
but it was absolutely the best choice for me.
exactly. Okay, so I know you are a busy lady. You have a job, you have a job, you have a business, and I know you do other things. So just very quickly, before we tell people how to get hold of you and what you offer, very quickly, just tell us a little bit about you personally. Give us the real part of Cheri.
The real part of me, gosh. Well, as you said, I do everything, don't I? I'm also I'm not happy unless I'm busy. I'm always doing something. So I do have a corporate job. I do that 4 days a week, and then I do my coaching on the other 3 days. In my own business, I have dogs. So I've got 2 German Shepherds at the moment, soon possibly to be about another 11 on the way because my female's
Ah,
hopefully be
babies.
confirmed pregnant next week. Yeah, so I'm going to keep a female out of that litter. And I've got a Malinois, Belgian Shepherd or Belgian Malinois, as they call them.
Mhm.
And I work in a sport called IGP, which is
Yeah.
like 3-phase sport that we do. And then I also train in the sport of Brazilian Jiu Jitsu, which if you don't do it, you should do it because it is the best thing I have ever done, second to coaching.
Mhm.
It has taught me so many things about myself, my self-worth, my resilience to get back up when I get knocked down. And I don't mean physically get knocked
No,
down. I'm
no,
just,
no.
learning a new skill set that even at 48, I actually can do this. It doesn't matter
Mhm.
what you put your mind to. If you just work out the little steps to get to there, you can actually get there. So
Yeah.
yeah, I do that as well. And I do a little
I
bit of yoga
totally
too.
advocate. I totally advocate doing something that builds
Mm.
yourself up. As you well know, mine is slightly different to yours. So I took up
You have an
burlesque
amazing
dancing.
hobby, don't you?
I took up burlesque dancing at the age of 50. And again, like you, the best thing I've ever done. Has taught me so much about my self-worth,
Yeah,
about who I really am, about my capabilities as well. Yeah, yeah, absolutely. And I think we'd both advocate anything you think you'd love to
yeah.
do, but you haven't done yet, just do it.
Just have a go. Yeah. I mean,
Absolutely.
how? how did you go from not doing that to something like, because it's very physical, isn't it?
Hmm.
It's quite what's the word, like empowering, but you're
Hmm.
also putting yourself out there in a level of vulnerability.
Hmm.
So you've got to have a certain amount of braveness just to even have a go. So what made you do that of all
It took me
things,
five
rather than
years. It took me
5
five
years?
years, right, to decide to go. But
But
because
here's
I
the
saw
thing,
them
right? You
perform.
did it.
Yeah, because I saw them perform. And I saw them perform, and they were all different shapes and sizes and ages. And I have danced since I was 4 years old. Ballet, tap, jazz. Um, and hence why the sort of actress or being on stage type of thing was there with me. I've done
Yeah,
amateur dramatics. And throughout my sort of adult life doing exercise, I tried to be normal. I tried to go to the gym and do all of that. It's
no
not
such
for me.
thing.
No fluttering, and it's not for me. So I've
Mm,
always ended up doing some kind of class. I did jazzercise. Do you know what I mean? All those
yeah,
things that incorporate
yeah,
dance and routine.
yeah,
And this, as I say, I saw 5 years ago, was not ready then, was not, you know, body ready, wasn't just head ready, just none of
yeah,
that. And then literally 2 years ago, I'd been thinking about it so much, and I'd been doing a lot of work on myself. And I thought, do you know what? And it was post Sister Nikki going. I thought, do you know what? There's no time but now. If I'm going to do this, I do this now. And I turned up on the first session with the biggest, baggiest clothes you've ever seen. And if anybody follows me on social, you'll realise what I wear now, and it's nothing like what I turned up in.
you look amazing. Like,
But I have struggled with a bit of injury as well, because I'm not the
yeah,
youngest. So I have struggled with a knee issue. But I don't let it. I mean, I've made sure that I've taken care of myself, rested when I need to, look
mm,
at, the footwear and that kind of stuff, so that I can continue. But do you know what? The first night I walked into that room, I've never felt so welcome. And
oh,
they're all ages, all shapes, all sizes, wear all weird and wonderful clothes. And do you know what? I walked in, and at the end of it, I thought, I'm home. This is
oh,
where I
that's so
belong.
nice.
And so, that's just for me. I'm not saying it's for everybody, but what I am saying is, there's something that you have thought about, um, and you want to do, or you want to take back up. Maybe you did it when you were younger and you gave it up,
Yeah,
Don't
find
just
your thing.
find your thing, find a way of doing it.
Mm,
It will parachute your self worth
yeah,
more than you'll ever realize. So, coming on to that point, if you want to parachute your self worth, through confidence and resilience, then Cheri's now going to tell you how to get hold of her, where to find her, what you can follow, because she puts out fabulous content. And yeah, and then we'll add all the links below the show and everything, like we always do. So take it away.
lovely. Thank you, Bee.
That's so.
Yeah, if you want to follow me or connect with me, ask me any questions, you can find me at atum_coaching. That's ATUM_coaching. I do have a website, www.atomcoaching.com, but it is being updated at the moment, so bear with.
Okay. And when you work with people, do you work in one way? Is there various ways? What are your options?
So I do one-to-one or small groups. I don't tend to do big group coaching because I find I like the personal touch. Um, I like to try and help people do like work out if they've got a buddy that they can work with. So some
Hmm.
people come to me as like two people, they each have like their own separate session, and then they'll maybe come and do a group. Or
Yeah.
I should say a couple. I don't mean
Hmm.
couple as in, it might be a group of
As in
friends, do
relationship couple, you
colleagues
mean
or something.
friends? Yeah.
Yeah. So I'm really open to doing one-to-one or small group coaching.
Hmm.
I do individual sessions or I do blocks. It's really just tailored to the person. Very much depends on what they are wanting to work on.
Hmm.
We usually have an initial chat because I do it over a virtual coffee. I love my coffee. Um,
You're not the only one.
so I normally do that because then inevitably sometimes things come out the woodwork. So
Hmm.
we do an exercise called like I think some people refer to it as the wheel of life,
Hmm.
where you kind of cover categories. But in those conversations, other things very often come out. So then we can
Hmm.
categorize them and go, well, I know you came with this, but you've just told me this is a 9 or this is a
Hmm.
10. Like, where do
Yeah.
you want to go? What's the priority for you right now? So
Mm.
I think in those initial free conversations, it really helps the person hone in on what it is that they're struggling with.
Hmm. Yeah. Yeah. And they leave, even if they don't decide to work with you, they
Yeah,
leave with clarity.
absolutely. Yeah,
Much more than what they came to the session with. And like
yeah,
you said, probably clarity on something maybe they didn't even realize was going on.
yeah. And
Which
that's the
is,
point, isn't it? Yeah.
that is the point of coaching, isn't it? That is what
Yeah.
it's all about. It's not teaching, it's not mentoring,
No,
it is coaching.
insight. Yeah,
Yeah,
it's
and it's
insight.
working in the now and the future. So it's
Yeah,
looking at the now and where you're going to go, and it's using you find your own path. We just facilitate the right questions, and they are questions that I can guarantee you will never ask yourself. So I'm going to wrap it up there. Thank you so much for being on today. I hope you've enjoyed being here. I will let you into a secret, ladies and gentlemen, that Cheri is not that keen on speaking, public speaking, or on sort of social media, and that's one of the things I've been trying to help her with, isn't it?
it certainly is, B. Yeah, and I am getting braver because I'm
You
here,
are.
right?
You absolutely are. You showed up. You didn't cancel on me, and
Yeah.
amazing. So
And thank you
really,
for sorry.
I
Thank
was
you
going to
for
say
letting me
sorry
be
too.
yeah,
Yeah,
thank you for being really, really helpful, both in my journey as well, but also just having me on the show and holding the space for me when I've wanted to explore some things that are kind of hitting me in the wrong
yeah.
way.
You are more than welcome. And I just want to say to everybody out there, don't knock coaching until you try it. It
Mm,
is one of the most amazing things I've found in my life. Cheri, I know, feels exactly the same. And, we are here to support you, coaches, or anybody looking to be coached in any way that we can. So have a
absolutely.
fantastic rest of day, evening, whenever you're watching this. And we will be back next week with another episode of the Naked Coach Collective.